Jim Scott, I feel very proud to have met you because I have known the work you've done in the pet food industry from actually the time when your father did the work. And I didn't know there were real people behind Raws and that those people were the pioneers of natural pet food. Your father was a visionary. And I guess why I'm so proud and grateful not only to have met you and learn that you give away 100% of your profits, which is an astounding fact, but also that you then decided that what I do on this show and in my other shows to educate people and inspire them to make good choices for themselves and their pets, you became a sponsor. So I want to say right away that this is not a puff piece. This is actually a piece to me of pet nutrition history to talk to you about how this industry in, I don't know, 50 years, less than 50 years, went from not an industry, just a product like Kleenex or Saran wrap, although of course you shouldn't say the brand names, right? To being something that really drives a lot of people's lives, what they feed their pets, how they feed their pets, who makes the food, what they put in the food, why it matters. So, can we first talk about your father, Jim Scott Sr., who bought a company called Old Mother Hubbard? Now, when I first was writing the Dog Bible, I knew that Old Mother Hubbard was a very famous, I think, biscuit brand. And then along came a product called Wellness, which was the first truly remarkable dry dog food. Can you talk about your family's history with that? And then we'll move forward into Raws and what has inspired you and your wife, Janet, and your sons to create a new iteration of dog food.
You bet. And thank you very much for that introduction. My mother and father started the Old Mother Hubbard Biscuit Company. They bought it from a fellow named Mr. Hubbard in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And it's amazing. They used to make the biscuits. If you go into a pizza shop with the pizza ovens, that's how it was made.
In
So
a pizza shop oven.
yeah, in a pizza shop
I'll be
oven.
darned.
It wasn't a rotary
Right.
conveyor type product. And we take out sheets, and I'm trying to remember how old I was, 4 or 5. And we take out a sheet, and we would have a guillotine, and we'd chop the sheet vertically and horizontally. And anything that we didn't chop with precision became a kibble.
I'll
And
be darned.
anything that we chopped with precision became a dog biscuit.
I have to say, this is totally amazing that in our lifetime, me and the other people who feed their dogs and cats, that we're meeting someone who was part of a pioneering experience. And now you have grandchildren that you're grooming. I'm exaggerating, but you
Yeah.
do have grandchildren who are going to become, we hope, the third generation of Scots in this business. So there have been some people in the last couple of decades who wanted to make dog biscuits themselves, and their story is I made them in my kitchen and I made them in my oven like Betty Crocker, and then I put them in little bags. But you're talking about a pioneer idea that this food could be made by hand. It wasn't made that way before then.
No, it was all done by hand. And so the biscuit business, we had very tiny business, small business, and my mother and father, very hardworking people. They believed in, they loved animals, and we inherited, my siblings and I inherited that spiritual belief of what animals mean to people. And that was when we even started wellness, that was really the compass that we used in terms of we formulated wellness with human grade ingredients before this was popular.
Before anyone even conceived of it, Jim.
There was no category yet. There was
Right.
no natural category at all. But we animal lovers, and we wanted to formulate a product that really wasn't concerned with cost and wasn't concerned, it was concerned with, and not a press release, but really ingredients that were the best you could buy relative to a baked or an extruded pet food. And the genesis of, so my wife and I started wellness, and the genesis of the idea for wellness, this was really cool. So I was studying human nutrition. And then I had a PhD in animal nutrition
Could I just
advising.
interrupt? Hello. Oh, yeah. I had this PhD in animal nutrition. Jim, first of all, that is extraordinary. There's no but privately owned pet food company, and I know all of them, where anybody has a degree in animal nutrition, much less a doctorate. In fact, animal nutrition is a tiny field, not really studied very much by people. You went out on this limb to say, we want to make a better product, but I'm going to be a scientist and do it intelligently, not just emotionally. Because you
Well, I don't have a PhD. I had a PhD in human food nutrition, the natural space, homeopathic space. And then I had an animal consultant who had a PhD. So I thought marrying those
yes,
beliefs,
yes.
but this is really cool. The idea of wellness came actually from listening to people speak about their animals. So I would go into the old-fashioned natural food stores, the independent stores,
Yep.
and I'd have endless conversations about how they felt about their animals, what was important from not just the outside of an animal, but the inside of the animal. And again, before the term natural and holistic was even a segment, what the common thread in a lot of those conversations was they called their pet, whether it's a dog or a cat, they used the term my baby.
Mm-hmm.
And they would further say, I have an obligation because I have to decide for my baby.
Hmm.
And they could have a dog that was 14 years old and they'd call him my baby.
Yeah.
That's really the genesis to say, let's make when only the best will do. And then we came up with the brand name Wellness, which would indexed in with the product's positioning. And we did a lot of this just in our kitchen, just ideas and surrounding ourselves with people that truly loved animals. I think that was the key for us.
I think what's fascinating is that you created a brand that was in a niche that was not a niche. There was no such thing. Now you go to these pet conferences and conventions, which is where I recently met you, which I sometimes talk about in the show because people can't imagine 10,000 vendors in a space the size of several airplane hangars. And there are now complete aisles of what's called natural
Right.
pet foods, natural other kind of perhaps supplements or physical things you can buy. It didn't exist before. So to say that you're the grandfather, or you are the grandfather, not the father, your father's the grandfather, you're the father, right? Because your dad was just and mother were just making dog biscuits of nice quality, but they didn't have this drive you have to come up with something fully balanced meal that comes from incredible ingredients. And I do remember because when I was writing the dog Bible, I'd read the whole dog journal, and there was wellness, and maybe there was one or two competitors tried to be copycats, but that was it. It basically, all the writing that was written that was objective spoke ill of what went into traditional kibble and
Right.
only singled out wellness as a company doing something completely different.
Mhm.
Let's do a space shot to Mars because everybody else is still driving cars. We're going to do something completely off the radar. And I think that's amazing. And to you who's seen the whole arc of the industry, it's not as amazing as it is to me that you then walked away from your company in addition to having built it to a real powerhouse with the same person there that did the PR for 16, 20 years. I don't know. It's like you were a family. And
Right.
let's talk about why you had to step away and why you stepped back to make Raws. It's such a human part of the story, and yet again, you now privately own a company that's predicated on a completely new set of nutritional principles and knowledge, but then gives away every extra penny to cat rescues, mostly service dog organizations, dozens of them, and also spinal cord and traumatic brain injury nonprofits because of what happened to not one but both of your sons. I think that story isn't to make people buy Raws because, oh, I feel sorry for the Scots, but more like I celebrate them, I salute them. And let's talk about your boys.
Thank you. So This is a very cool, special story. We had this idea about a minimally processed dry food for a long time. And when our children got hurt, so we have a son, he was 18, spinal cord injury, and we had a son with a traumatic brain injury. He just was 2 months out of college, Jimmy. And when they got hurt, we were the caregivers. We
Mhm.
didn't just throw money at it. And that was really one of the major factors of selling wellness. And we had great partners, great company, great people. We needed to take whatever gas we had left in the tank because your universe changes at every dimension when someone has Andrew's in a wheelchair today, and Jimmy does have a traumatic brain injury.
Mhm.
They're on a relative basis, they're doing amazing. We're just blessed. And Andrew's a high school math teacher, coaches hockey, has two beautiful daughters, married an angel and Katie.
Nice.
And he's one of the reasons we started Roz
Right.
because his injury presents challenges, but he's a terrific writer and he's an animal lover. So if we wanted to give back, keep it in the family, that's a very special equation to go through life, I think. The actual idea of Roz itself came from our son, Andrew. He was going to grad school. He's in a wheelchair. He's got an L1 injury, which is a centimeter below his belly button. He has
Okay.
no feeling. And he said to Janet and I, Janet, my wife, said to Janet and I want to get a puppy. And New Hampshire's got a winter, right? Like Vermont. And we said, hey, Andy, why don't we get you a service dog? And service dogs are about 35 to $50,000. They're very expensive. And if you ever meet Andrew someday,
I look forward to it.
he's terrific. And he said, oh, no, I don't want a service dog. But if you're going to do something like that, why don't you give it to somebody that really needs one?
Oh, sweet.
So here's a young man in a wheelchair and he doesn't see himself needing it. So,
Amazing. He's his father's son.
so thank God he looks like his mother. But he said, why don't you take that idea you've been thinking about and create a nonprofit? And that was an aha moment in our life. That was very spiritual. One can just envision this young man in a wheelchair presenting an idea like that. And I still get goosebumps sharing it.
I believe.
And I said to Janet, oh my God, what do you think, hon? And you know what she said to me? She
No.
said some very bad words. Are you fill in the blank kidding me? I'm not going to tell you what she said, but you could figure it out.
I met her and she's a very soft-spoken, very serious person. So you really did push her button with that one.
Oh, yeah. She looks like Mother Teresa, but she's
Yes.
not.
Okay, good.
But, anyways, the saddest words in life are I could have, I should have. And with
True.
our experience in the business, every dimension, formulation, manufacturing, distribution, sales, marketing, all the different dimensions of a business,
Yes.
we understood this business really
Oh, yeah.
well. And we were blessed with a very successful exit with wellness. But all of that said, we are continuous improvement people. We believe in improving every day constantly. That's just our belief. And we had the opportunity to take this experience and apply it to the nonprofit world. So we got back into the business. It's been great. We have a great team. We've donated 3.725 million so far.
In
Um,
a very short period of time.
in total, that's
Relatively.
over 10 years.
Relatively, that's a lot of money for a small startup. In the end of the day, you're a startup. And the idea behind Rawz, which is spelled Rawz, as I understand it, is that there are lots of people who are curious about. They understand the idea that an unprocessed, not minimally processed, but a complete unprocessed food might be good for cats and dogs, but it's has them uncomfortable, uneasy. Management of how to handle raw foods is tricky and potentially unsafe hygienically. So, how could you apply that idea of the least processing possible to maintain the most nutritional value from food and put that in a kibble? When you say minimally processed, that's important for people to understand because the words used around kibble are always highly processed carbohydrates as a diss. This is why
Hmm.
kibble, I feed kibble. Any of us with a large dog, you have to feed some kibble along with meat in whatever form you give it, because that's the only way to fill up your dog. Otherwise, and also make sure that their gut is working properly, prebiotics, probiotics, etc. So minimally processed takes away the stigma of highly processed carbs because your foods have high protein. And the minimal processing goes takes what your ideas were around wellness of natural and holistic to a completely different place, doesn't it?
It does. And there's two nutritional compasses that we use. Number one is the next best thing to feeding raw.
Yes,
Raw food, as you mentioned, is the best. Unprocessed nutritionally is the best for an animal if you know how to feed it, if you're committed to feeding it safely, and that is not an easy task.
not at all.
We do believe, we're animal lovers, that it's worth it, but you need to have time, you need to have safety measures. And if you have kids in the household, it creates all different dimensions of where do
Correct.
you store it, etc. But that leads into, then let's do the next best thing. So when we say minimally processed, we primarily think about proteins. So we use dehydrated chicken, for an example, versus chicken meal. So we don't use any rendered meals, which are highly processed. So
Very.
our protein, all of our meat proteins are dehydrated. Now, we did come out because we felt it was situation specific, a rabbit dry cat food. We had to use rabbit meal to elevate the protein. Without that, we couldn't have made the product. That's the
But I do
only,
want to say that for cats, in England in particular, rabbit in a can is considered, which we don't barely have at all in America, is considered the best nutritionally for cats. It's the closest to a mouse. Rabbit is a
it is.
natural prey of a cat, and it is the best nutritional protein for a cat, bar nothing. I didn't realize your cat food had rabbit. That's pretty cool. And rabbit meal is not really that highly processed because it's not like it's in some huge acres wide facility in somewhere in the middle of America. There aren't that many rabbits that are being raised for human food, much less pet food.
We don't use any rendered fats either.
Right.
Everything is natural or
Yep.
oils,
Yep.
olive oil as an example, because rendered fats are highly processed.
Correct. I think that this idea of the protein coming from the actual flesh, meat of these animals is something people don't fully understand. I've discussed it many times on the show before, but just because the bag you're feeding from uses the word chicken or even fish or even beef, if it just says that word as opposed to dehydrated chicken, which is 100% flesh, or it says deboned chicken, what they basically are taking are carcasses with all the meat off of it and boiling that all down. And that's a very different thing than the actual protein from meat, right?
Oh yeah, if one actually investigates the world of rendering,
Yeah. Scary.
you'll be surprised. We there's a lot of claims out there and marketing slogans.
Yep.
We're very simplistic in our view. If a consumer is going to go out of their way to go to a specialty store and they truly want the best for their animal, you have an obligation to give them a product that's phenomenal at every nutritional dimension, both inside of an animal and outside, because most consumers never think about the inside of an animal. So excessive stress or toxins. That's why dogs don't live as long.
Yeah.
And
Lead an
people,
unnatural life, really. People
yeah,
look for a way to feed natural food if they can find it. And you're right, the specialty stores, a brick and mortar pet food store is the place to find. You can get raws on all the various platforms, but if you go to a specialty store, they're grateful that there are those few brands like yours that are made by passionate people who don't cut corners, who believe in the best possible ingredients, and the price tag shows it. But that's an investment in your animal's wellness, as well as the fact that every penny you spend is going to eventually go to companies or organizations, nonprofits doing good. I think we can't stress that enough. As I said to your wife and mentioned to my brother Tim, who's still in touch with Newman's Own, that my father and Paul Newman founded together, the first company that anybody had heard of to give away 100% of their profits to various charities, a mixed bag of them. Yours are very focused. And just recently, one of the people still running the company with my father and Paul now gone said, "Oh, we're the only company we know of that gives away 100% of our profits." And I said, "Have you heard of Ross?" They didn't even know that you were in this space quietly doing your thing. So, really, for me, the privilege of having you as part of my world is to say, this is a huge difference in what's in the food, but also what happens to that money? Does it go to pay for a corporate jet, or does it go to cat rescues, service dog organizations, and organizations for traumatic brain injury and spinal cord injuries, which all of which every penny that you give them goes towards good, just like Chris Reeves' injury and the money he raised
right.
has changed the landscape, maybe even helped Andrew. Who knows? But in the end of the day, a company that is willing to put their profit aside, not just like a B Corp, which I've talked about in the show, that some percentage goes to good, which is great, but 100%, as you said, you did incredibly well with hard work and dedication with wellness. You pocketed money, and now you're able to pour that into creating an exceptional, or I like your word, phenomenal products. And then the profit from that is not going back in your bank account. You're running a company, you have people's salaries, and then everything else goes towards doing good for others. No wonder you're okay with waking up every day and and looking at a glass and saying that is so half full. And I just
Yeah.
have to say that's an extraordinary quality, Jim. And it's an amazing company, but you also have gone from being a pioneer to being a visionary. How does that happen in one man's lifetime? That's pretty cool. I know you have Mother Teresa by your side and it doesn't hurt, right?
We're blessed to be able to do it all. We having the ability, but not executing on it. And I'm going to share one special, very cool story, very spiritual story, and I think about it all the time. Service dog placement is a big cause of ours.
Right.
So this little girl, she was 10 years old. She was autistic, somewhat severe in the spectrum. Her father is a doctor. They tried everything. And as she got older, you know how society is. If they don't understand something, they
Yep.
push it away, which is
Yes.
not a good thing. But in any event, the fellow that ran this service dog group called Needs in Princeton, Massachusetts.
It's a great group.
He says, I just want you to know sometimes when you thank you for supporting us, but here's a story of how it actually works. So they put a little yellow lab service dog in this little girl's home. And when the dog arrived, the little girl was very excited and she learned how to play the piano for the dog.
Oh my goodness.
And that changed everybody's life. She wanted to entertain the dog, so
My
she would play
goodness.
the piano.
Oh my God.
And then that introduced her playing the piano to other people.
Yes.
Think about that.
Yes.
That's
Sure.
because of one dog.
Yeah. Icebreaker. And that
Well,
became the bridge back into the world,
yeah.
which is
So,
what
you know,
dogs can
that's one
do.
of the things that motivates us, that you're so blessed to be able to be part of that.
You're part of that story. You're part of that little girl's life and that dog's life and the organization that continues to feel good about what they're doing and believe in what they're doing. Jim, we've run out of time. We could talk a lot about the good that you're doing and the good that other people are doing in this world. But I just want to thank the whole Scott family for believing in yourselves and believing in us and believing in our relationship to our pets. I feel so grateful to have met you and thank you for being part of my world.
Thank you, Tracy. You're doing great things yourself.